AGBI. Others tell you what, we tell you why.
Yeah, find out all the latest at agbi.com. It's the Arabian Gulf Business Insight. We're joined this week by the Editor-in-Chief of AGBI, James Drummond, back in the studio with us. Morning to you, James, and Ramadan Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem, good morning to you.
Let's focus on a couple of big stories that you've been focusing on in recent times, none more so than one of the biggest populations in the region, Egypt, of course. Just in the last week, in fact, we've had yet another update. Egypt has seen $8 billion being pledged from the IMF. This, of course, after significant investment from the UAE's ADQ. What impact has this had? Obviously, confidence has been low in Egypt for foreign investors and investors from across the region as well. Is that going to change that confidence in Egypt?
Short term, it already has. I mean, one of the ratings agencies, and Moody's had them on a negative outlook. Egypt's been adjusted to a positive outlook. I mean, the JP Morgan's called for international investors to get involved in the so-called carry trade in Egypt. International investors, capital markets investors, largely sort of exited Egypt about 2 years ago. They will be coming back to take advantage of interest rates in the region of 28%, which is obviously very attractive. But Egypt is a risky country, and the scale of the change that the IMF and the UAE seem to have extracted is sizable. They're moving from a peg to a floating exchange rate. That at least is that's according to the announcement. But it is a big ask of Egypt to do so.
But obviously, investors seeing potential possibilities there at the moment. Is that a sort of just indication of again, the potential word that Egypt offers?
I mean, yeah. I mean, Egypt offers enormous potential. There's enormous goodwill towards it, but it's suffering greatly because of Ukraine, because of Gaza, and other issues. I mean, inflation came in at 35% last month. Poverty rate of about 30% of the entire population. So, but you saw this concerted announcement last week by the Emiratis, 35 billion. I mean, this is a huge number. So 11 in cash transfers, conversion of existing deposits, but 24 billion in this so-called new city on the Mediterranean coast, Ras Al Hikma. That's a very sizable number. They've got the Emiratis have got we have a long list of investments in Egypt. I mean, just down the road from Ras Al Hikma is Marasi, an EMR development. EMR has another development sizable on the Mediterranean coast. DP World operates Ain Sokhna. ADQ has investments in CIB, probably the premier bank in Egypt. It's been building stakes in container interests in Alexandria, in payment systems, you name it. DP World, EMR, it goes on. Althea bought a stake in a snack company a couple of weeks ago, I think. So in some ways, this huge sort of big bazooka is as much to protect UAE interests in Egypt as they stand. But it is, it's going to be a new sort of dawn. I mean, pick your cliche, because they're going to. The question is around the extent to which the central bank will hike interest rates to defeat inflation.
So I suppose that prompts the next question, which is, I think we can all indicate, just given the nature of the country, the size of the population, the influence it has across the region as well, the potential is there for all to see. But that must come with potential risks as well. What are they?
Well, I mean, currency devaluation further. So if you're holding existing Egyptian pounds deposits or assets denominated in Egyptian pounds, I mean, you've already taken a big hit, because nominally at least it's gone from 30 to about 48 to the dollar as of today. So are you going to hold Egyptian pounds? You would prefer, presumably, to hold deposits, to hold dollars. But Yeah, so it's not without risks. People have been burned in Egypt, frankly, before, and with that kind of devaluation, I mean, you're doing all the right things. You're running your hotel, you're running your power station, whatever it happens to be, your system of petrol stations, and then overnight you've just seen your nominal investment halved in value because of a devaluation. So. But Egypt has enormous potential. There is a middle class. The tourism offering is without comparison. That development on the Mediterranean is attractive. And the Mediterranean is removed from the risks of Gaza, I would say, by and large. They talk about a new airport. It is, it's physically very attractive. You've got Al Alamein not far away. You've got Siwa. It's a bit of a hack down the road, but there's lots to like about that. Egypt does have experience in the tourism offering, so it's not unsensible.
They've also unfortunately got experience of making a few mistakes, especially economically, in the past as well. Can we take it that they're going to learn from those mistakes to move forward this time?
It's difficult to underestimate the poverty in Egypt. And you don't necessarily see it in the centre of Cairo or in the resorts you might go to in Sharm el-Sheikh or on the Mediterranean. But poorer Egyptians are very reliant, for example, on very cheap diesel. And the IMF is saying that the government has forsworn, will remove these subsidies that create huge sort of distortions in the Egyptian economy. Bread is very cheap and is a huge sort of totem for Egypt. Governments for the last 30 years have fought shy of liberalising the bread price. It's heavily defended. I mean, it's very, very cheap. But it is, for poor Egyptians, it is almost literally a lifeline. I think they have to do it. But I was a correspondent in Egypt 20-something years ago, and we were talking about the same issues to do with diesel and bread prices. And they've managed to kick the can down the road for, actually longer than 20 years. So I'm sure that will be their inclination. I'm sure that's the discussions that IMF and the UAE have been having behind closed doors, saying you must liberalise these, and once you do so, then you create incentives in the market to invest in diesel and refineries, etc., and invest in agriculture on the other side. So here's hoping. There's enormous goodwill towards Egypt, I'd say, internationally, but it's difficult with the headwinds that they face.
Given as you just said, you've been a correspondent there, you spent a lot of time there in Egypt, you know the country well. Given your understanding of the economy of the country, but more importantly, the Egyptians themselves as well, what's your sort of prediction for the future, especially in line of this latest bailout from the IMF? Because I suppose that comes with a concern and optimism. I've only got about 40 seconds left or so.
If they allow that exchange rate to float, then I think a lot is possible. But they are very conservative. They have observed this peg for decades. That is, for students of monetary policy, it's an interesting one. Now they have taken the plunge and ostensibly at least allowed it to float. It collapsed to 50 overnight. They'll be hoping that it tightens to beyond what it is, 48 as of today. That's to Egyptian pounds to the dollar. So it is a big ask. It's a big ask to the central bank to manage things. I think the technocrats within the central bank will know what they're about approximately. They will be putting this to the politicians in charge, who will be nervous about public opinion and have long been, fought shy of this kind of reform. It's a big moment in Egypt.
One that we will watch with interest, as will all the team at AGBI. James, can't thank you enough for your insight into this topic. James Drummond, Editor-in-Chief, Arabian Gulf Business Insight.
By 103.8.
Join the conversation.